Kia ora, haere mai, talofa, namaste, and welcome to this week's episode of the Niche Cage Variety Show. We're from the Niche Cage, the niche-cage.com, and this is our Sporting a Buffet podcast available on YouTube and your podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, however you want it. We're out here and we're just here to deliver some notes and nuggets about Aotearoa sport, typical Niche Cage vibe. You know what we do, you know the sports we cover, you know the things we love, and we are here to spin those yarns. Hold that thought about spin. Bit of spin for this episode on my end for the variety show. Prior to this, we did record our subscriber podcast, which goes out to everyone supporting the Niche Cage directly through Patreon and or the paid Substack subscription. Those are the easiest ways to donate to the Niche Cage directly, straight up the guts, and we appreciate the support of the Patreon and paid Substack whānau. It keeps the Niche Cage going. It keeps the Niche Cage afloat. And apart from all the everyone engaging with our content on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Facebook, and just making us feel good about the work that we do, big up to the Patreon whānau and the Substack subscribers, the paid Substack subscribers, because your support is crucial to the Niche Cage at this stage. And if you do want to donate directly to the Niche Cage, you can do so by joining the Patreon whānau or upgrading your Substack subscription to a paid Substack subscription. And for those people, we drop an extra podcast every Tuesday, which we record prior to the variety show. And this week, we broke down Warriors versus Dragons. We talked about the Up the Waz and a couple of Blackcaps bits and bobs as well. So that will be there on the Patreon and paid Substack feed. Big up to all those folks. And you can also sign up to the free Substack newsletter, thenichecage.substack.com. That comes out every Monday and Friday, full, jam-packed with Aotearoa sporting information, as well as all the links to our latest yarns on our website, all the podcast information. Basically anything you need to know about the Niche Cage can be found in those Monday and Friday newsletters, so sign up. Otherwise, just check in with all the content we're making. And sometimes we get a bit down, sometimes we get a bit sad, so your positive reinforcement and your positive energy towards us helps us out immensely as well. Big up yourself, love yourself, and we need a bit of mindfulness.
Yeah, well, next time we get a little bit sad and in need of positive reinforcement. Ironically, this mindfulness quote that I had already picked out kind of subverts the need for that. This is from Jorge Luis Borges, who says, "Plant your own garden and decorate your own soul instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers." But we do like our flowers from the readers
It's
and the
always,
listeners.
it is always nice to receive positive energy from others, but to tie it back into who we are and what we do, we're saying what we need to say. We're doing what we need to do ourselves. We love Aotearoa and we love Aotearoa sport, and we've got things we want to say as part of the Aotearoa sporting conversations, and that fills my cup up, is just following Aotearoa, celebrating the sport and enjoying the excellence of Aotearoa sport, and also, a bit of serving the mission, serving the passion, living my passion, and doing what I need to do. So as much as we do appreciate the external flowers and mana and sunlight, we are also nurturing that light within ourselves. There we go. That's my own mindfulness, my own spin on the mindfulness.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't do it for the external alone. Like if the external comes along, that's cool. If it doesn't come along, though, you still have to be doing something and whatever anyone's chosen vocation or passion or whatever it might be. Like you got to do something that's fulfilling to yourself as well. And if if the other stuff comes along, it does. If it doesn't, you've still got that fulfillment. Like that's the purpose. Yeah, still nice if people jump on our Patreon though and help us out there. It doesn't go astray. But I mean, people that do, it's going towards us continuing to build what we're trying to do, right? So
let's get the Aotearoa sporting juices flowing. And it's been an interesting couple of weeks for Aotearoa Warriors Rugby League. We've been breaking down this stretch of tricky, niggly, tough wins over the last few weeks. You can go back through the archives. It started out with abundance and love and prosperity, smoking the Eels, destroying the Sharks, big wins, happy days. And then things got a bit tricky. Things got a bit niggly, but the Warriors kept winning. And I have been pondering this deeply. I've updated those ponderings every podcast, every newsletter, every Aotearoa Warriors diary. We've been updating the vibe about the Warriors on their winning streak. And it's important to note the Aotearoa Warriors are on a winning streak that is one game less than the Newcastle Knights, and they also play in front of massive crowds. And that's where we're at right now after the win against the Dragons. The Warriors have been winning tough games in front of big crowds and getting the job done. And from my perspective, the spin I'm going to put on this yarn, it's a doosra. It's a ripping leggy. I'm spinning the yarn. Because the spin here is that the Warriors are well prepared for finals footy. They've had niggly encounters. They've had to dig deep. They've had to play 80 minutes of footy. They've had to be energized by the crowd to get to rally home to wins. And they are on a monster winning streak. And this winning streak doesn't look all that different to the Newcastle Knights, to be honest. So if you're seeing anyone celebrate the Newcastle Knights, sold out stadiums, 7 games, 8 games in a row, what are the Warriors doing? 6 or 7 games in a row in front of sold-out stadiums. The same thing, winning tough without their best players, in absorbing the loss of Luke Metcalf, Rocco Berry, whoever else has been injured in these games. And you look back, like, I don't know, they defeated the Seagulls. The Seagulls just put 40 on the Bulldogs. They defeated the Titans. The Titans are a challenging team, and they challenged the Storm last weekend. They defeated the Tigers. Well, the Tigers, they win now. You know, those teams are all competing at a high level late in the season. And if the Warriors were stink, they would have lost one of those games for sure. Because the wins against the Sharks and the Eels just prior to this streak of wins, you know, they're honkadory. That's when the Warriors are playing good footy. That's when they can destroy other teams. But we've seen that from the Warriors many times before. What we haven't seen from the Warriors in my lifetime is winning tough games and winning consistently. And that's all the Warriors have been doing. So that's my spin, because you're going to see a lot of other storylines about the Warriors stumbling into finals footy. And who knows, I may look like a fool, but I'm putting the spin on this yarn, and I'm saying the Warriors are well prepared for finals footy heading into this game against the Dolphins, where they're just probably going to take the piss. Let's be honest. Your turn.
Yeah, imagine stumbling into finals footy on an 8-game win streak if they beat the Dolphins. It's not the worst situation to find yourself in. I would say the Tall Blacks maybe stumbled into their World Cup quest, though. I some of that, which I did talk about last week, there's some of that preparation stuff. They lost a few more games than they should have, in particular fourth quarter stumbles against China and Italy in games where they had been leading and then they lost, and some of the, it was all to be expected to some extent. Like, this is a bit of a new look Tall Blacks team. They had to kind of figure things out on the fly. They had those warm-up games in order to have that opportunity to figure those things out. And from those games, we boil it down to a few sort of key elements of the new identity of this team. So a couple of those fourth quarter struggles were true. Like, against Italy and China, they had leads and they couldn't hold them, and they went on to lose those games. You also saw in all these games, turnovers were a bit of a factor. They were conceding quite a few too many of those, but they were a good rebounding team, and curiously, really good 3-point shooting team, which is maybe something that hasn't always been the case with Tall Blacks teams as well. And through the first 2 games of their World Cup, I would say it's all gone pretty much as expected, and those elements of their identity have been pretty much, all the same things have been true of them in these games as they were in the warm-up games. Just maybe getting the balance a little bit better in a couple of those areas. They did lose to the USA first up. Tough matchup. What are you going to do? Like, it was just notable watching it, because one thing that's come through probably in these two games that wasn't so much the case in the warm-up games. The turnovers have been a little bit better, but foul counts have been an issue. But when you're watching them against America, it's like, how are you not going to foul? Like every equivalent player, like every Tall Blacks dude on the court, their equivalent American that they're guarding is bigger, stronger, faster, and more skillful. Like, what else are you going to do other than try to be physical? And I actually heard them talking about this on one of the American podcasts. They're talking about how often the Kiwis engaged contact with those dudes. Like, it was just the balls coming in, give them a little chest bump or whatever. It's constantly making sure that nothing came easy for them. And that did mean that there were a lot of foul count, like the personal foul tallies got a little high, and guys like Finn Delaney and Shaylee missed some time. Ruben Tarangi, I think, was another one. And these are some of your best players. When they were on the court, Tall Blacks were good as against America. They're actually 10 points up early on when they had the starters all out there. But of course, when you had to go to the depth, America's depth is as good as their starters, and ours isn't quite. So it goes over the course of that game. Paulo Banchero was nuts in that one too. Like, of all the players that you'd look at that team and say, like, this guy's ready to do something amazing, it's the rookie of the year, reigning rookie of the year fellow who actually was the best on the court for them. But yeah, tough loss to the USA, but what are you going to do? That's the USA. What that meant was that, well, frankly, they'd kind of scheduled in that defeat anyway, so they just, nothing changed. They knew they had to go and beat Jordan, and then if they beat Jordan, it's a matter of trying to beat Greece. Well, they did beat Jordan last night. Very exciting game. More exciting than it probably needed to be, because again, you saw a Tall Blacks team that Jordan's got a lot of big dudes, so the rebounding wasn't quite as much of a factor, but the 3-point shooting was unreal. Like, I think they hit 9 of 15 in the first half, and they hit 7 of their first 9. In fact, the Tall Blacks, like, these dudes just couldn't miss. Isaiah Liafa was out there draining them. Finn Delaney had a couple corner threes at the start, and they never extended the lead into anything comfortable, but they led through most of the game. Like, they were hovering around that sort of 5 to 9 points ahead through most of the second and third quarters. And then fourth quarter is still the same. Jordan had closed it up a little bit, but then remember what I said about the fourth quarter stuff against China and Italy? Well, we saw it again against Jordan, where it's like, just when it looked like they'd sorted things out and we're heading towards a tough, gritty victory, a Warriors-esque victory of late. And again, like, it's no different working towards NRL finals as it is as a basketball World Cup. You just get the win however you can get it. That's all that matters. They were right there. And then Yanni Wetzel coughs up a turnover, and then there's a couple missed shots in there, and then Wetzel fouls Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for a 4-point play, and that ties things up with 10 seconds to go. Illy misses a layup on the buzzer, a tough layup, but still a chance that he would have backed himself for. On the buzzer, which could have won it, sends it to overtime. Everything's feeling kind of frisky. But then, you remember that Warriors game against the Raiders where they were in prime condition to win, and then they coughed up a lead late on, and then they just went into Golden Point and efficiently broke the game down and won it nice and comfortably in the overtime period. Tall Blacks kind of did that. Like, I think they outscored Jordan 10-2 in the overtime. It was all they needed to do. Like, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't flashy, but they got the dub against a tricky kind of team, particularly when you got old mate Rondae Hollis-Jefferson out there with a vendetta against New Zealand, I think, because he was the first round draft pick for the Brooklyn Nets. I looked it up, and I think it was the year before Sean Marks came in. And then obviously Sean Marks was the GM who chose not to give him another contract and released him. And now he must be playing in Jordan because, like, last week, as recently as something like that, like within the last fortnight, gets his citizenship or eligibility or whatever, and is just randomly playing for Jordan now, and turned into Kobe Bryant in this game. Like, he was just hitting Kobe Bryant-esque shots. It was very weird, but tough game for the Tall Blacks, and they got the dub. That's the important thing, which means that next up they go and play Greece. If they beat Greece, they're into the next round. Greece beat Jordan a lot more comfortably than we did, but they also lost to America and coughing up more points than we did by a pretty similar margin. So that's going to be a close game, and it's what we were hoping to get to at this stage of the tournament, as a playoff for the playoffs against Greece. That's where they are. Everything's progressing nicely. And we'll just say, and if you saw Australia lost to Germany in their group stage game recently, they beat Finland relatively comfortably before that. Then they lost to Germany. Germany's real good. Like, both those two teams could be in semifinals, Australia and Germany. There's no dramas there. But it does mean if Australia slip up in their last game against Japan, and we beat Greece, we would go further in the tournament than Australia. And that's important to remember because there is an automatic Olympic qualifying spot on the line for Oceania between whoever goes further in the tournament between New Zealand and Australia. Normally, that's not really something we have to think about because Australia is going to go deep in the tournament. But I will just say, if we can, if those two results in the last round of the pool stuff go our way, might not have to worry about Olympic qualifying tournaments. It might get through automatically, which would be a beautiful thing. But one thing at a time, just got to beat Greece first.
I would like to highlight and celebrate the Brisbane Broncos for their Aotearoa Kiwi NRL Wahine Mahi at the moment. The NRL team had a big win, well, not a big win, not as big as the women's team, but the NRL team had a win over the Raiders. And it was just Jordan Ricky in the team, and Jordan Ricky's come straight back into starting edge for the Broncos. And I'll touch on Jordan Ricky later on as I update some Aotearoa Kiwis matters. No Dean Mariner and no Xavier Willison. Jesse Arthurs was 18th man. Willison scored a try for Wynnum in the first round of Queensland Cup finals. He was basically playing as a fullback, just supporting the play, which was great to see for the prop forward. Had over 200 meters, I think. Dean Mariner didn't play NRL and don't think he played in that finals game for Wynnum. So just keep an eye on what's happening there. The women's team, they did have a big win over the Raiders, and they are full to the brim of Aotearoa talent. Mele Hafunga's on fire in the centres, and her combination with Gail Broughton playing in the halves on the left side, that is a fantastic combination. Aneta Nu'uasala's a fantastic Kiwi Ferns prop, and she's got a combination with Aussie Kiwi Fern Brianna Clark. So the starting props are Kiwi Ferns props. And you've also got veteran Lavinia Gould playing the utility. But what's really interesting for the Broncos right now is Tafito Lafa'ele, who played her first game of the season. She was injured for the early stages. She left the Black Ferns setup to play NRLW for the Broncos. She's from Otara, and she was immense off the bench, offering powerful running. So you've got No'uasala, I think she's from Otara as well, and you've got Brianna Clark and Lafa'ele rolling down the middle for the Broncos, and you've got some really exciting outside backs, and as far as Hufunga and Gail Broughton in the halves. So always celebrate the Broncos for their elite NRL talent. Talk about the junior ranks a few times. Dean Mariner, Xavier Willison are two of the best young NRL players across the whole competition. They'll be starting for many other teams, but the NRL women's team for the Broncos, they are excellent. They are on fire, but they're not quite in the final zone just yet. They're fifth, but they have won 3 and lost 2 of their last 5 games. So they're building nicely, and with Lafa'ele playing her first game and offering power off the bench, I do expect to see the Broncos women's team improve over the next few weeks as well. What else do you have?
Well, the Wellington Phoenix are out of the Australian Cup. Their Aussie Cup run is over in the round of 16, it must be. They lost 3-0 to Melbourne City on Sunday afternoon, and frankly, the writing was on the wall pretty much as soon as you saw the squad list that were released for that game. The Phoenix rolling with a bench of backup goalkeeper David Ball coming back from injury and 5 academy players, 3 of whom were debutants who did actually get debuts as well. So there was Fergus Gillian, who was on the bench last time. He's a midfielder. You got Isaac Hughes, who's a centre back and was the main partner at the back for alongside Finn Sermon at the Under-20 World Cup recently. And then you had Luke Supik, who was one of the top goal scorers at the under-17s, likely to be going to the Under-17 World Cup. So he's pretty young. He's only 16, 17 still, and good goal scorer. They're starting to get a few under-20s gigs with the Phoenix reserves lately. Like, he's pushing through the ranks a little bit earlier than others of his age grade. So he's someone to certainly keep a little bit of an eye on. But, I mean, that's up against a Melbourne City squad that it's not only the reigning premiers, so they've already got a better squad than the Phoenix. They also happen to be Australia's only representative in the Asian Champions League, which is coming up, which means that they're actually further ahead in their preseason than the Phoenix are. Like they're a lot more match ready because they're prepping for that stuff. Where, by the way, one of the teams they've got in their group stage is a Japanese club called Ventforet Kofu, who in the second tier, there's the J2 league, like not the J League, but the J2 league. And they've qualified for Champions League because last year they won the cup as a second division team, which is kind of crazy. Well, their sort of long-term starting goalkeeper hero, who's one of the stars of their cup run, he recently got injured. And when he got injured, they had to sign a new goalkeeper. So they're looking around who's on the outer in the league above us who we might be able to get on loan. Well, they got someone on loan. That guy's name is Michael Veld, Kiwi international. So he's going to be playing against Melbourne City potentially. He did play on the weekend. I'm not sure how long their starting goalkeeper's out for, but he did get a debut on the weekend in the league game. So hopefully he'll be going up against Melbourne City. I don't know if that means anything particular to him, but it will be a random sort of coincidence for us from afar. He'd probably have preferred to play against Ronaldo's team, which the Saudi Arabian side, but so it goes. Yeah, as far as the Phoenix go against Melbourne City defensively, I thought they were pretty good. Well, particularly while it was 0-0, like when things were nice and even, they restricted City from having too many like clear chances, a lot of long shot stuff, but nothing too much to worry about until old mate Steven Ugarkovic hits a deflected volley from outside the box. If the wrong foots Alex Paulson puts them up just before, sort of late in the first half, and then obviously Jamie McLaren did his obligatory magic with a double and a couple quick fire double in the second half, and at that point the Phoenix were cooked. But I think especially for the team that they picked, like Albie Kelly-Hills looked quite sharp, really confident on the ball, which is cool to see at left back in both these games. I think the midfield pairing of Pennington and Rufer, I like the way how they support each other defensively. There's a good work rate going on there. Finn Sermon and Alex Paulson have looked pretty solid as well. A couple more academy guys getting bigger deals. That's all right. Like that stuff's quite nice. The issue is the same issue it was last year, which is the creativity. And some of this is work in progress. They're trying to be a bit more of a possession team in a different kind of way. So there's some nice flashes of that, but you're up against like Melbourne City. It's tough. It's not the best maybe indication of where they're at. Other than hints, like a lot of angled through balls over the top was a thing, but there's just it doesn't feel like they've quite got a solution yet to their creativity issue that they had last year. Oscar Zavada's missed a couple chances in these games, which doesn't help. Ozidar Kraev hasn't looked as impressive as a centre forward as I hoped he would, and they haven't signed anyone in these areas. They've released Jan Sass, so they've got less depth up front. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's starting to look like, I did write a while back about how the academy resurgence was coming. It's looking like that might be a little bit of a sink or swim thing, because there is definitely a lot of faith being showed in these dudes by Giancarlo Italiano. But you pick a lot of young players, there is a learning curve with that. And so if there's a learning curve, then expectations perhaps need to change. And I don't know, I'm not saying rebuilding year for the Phoenix, but I am saying I'm not sure that they're going to be exactly like blasting out of the blocks with a quick start if they are going to be leaning on these dudes. But there is still time to bring in it. They have another import spot available. There is still time to add to their squad, so we'll see what happens.
The Blackcaps continue their tour of England, and we did dive deep into the Blackcaps for the subscriber podcast. One little area that I'm really interested in ahead of these T20 internationals against England is Rachin, Ravindra and Cole McConchie, the spinning all-rounders who are both selected for the T20 international squad against England. Both played in the T20s against the UAE, and they also played in the T20 games against Worcestershire and Gloucestershire. Now they are going to be in action against a very good England white ball team. And their World Cup is in India. There's going to be spots up for grabs at the like lower ends of the squad, and also for injury cover. I'm putting it out there that I can see a situation where Ravindra and McConchie are both around that Blackcaps World Cup campaign, and I'd like everyone to be ready for that. but we'll see how they go against England. It'll be very interesting to see which one of them is most effective with bat and ball against a good England T20 team. You're up.
Yeah, well, back to the basketball now. This was something that was announced mere hours before the Tall Blacks played against the USA. Tohi Smith-Milner signed with Adelaide 36ers. Now, this was, I'd say it was announced then. It was reported weeks ago in the Aussie media. So this is something we've known has been on the, on the horizon. He, I think, has a couple of, there's at least one assistant coach who he worked with at Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, who's now at Adelaide, which is obviously where those connections come through. I think there's another coach he's worked with previously as well, maybe when he was at Melbourne. So he had a bunch of years at Melbourne, then he had a couple at Southeast Melbourne. So now he's moved to Adelaide. First time he's out of Victoria in his NBL career, but another good gig for another highly skilled Kiwi basketballer who had a pretty strong NZNBL, in particular with his shooting. It was real sharp. He was up there, one of the top 3-point shooters for a while there. So that's hopefully an element of his game that'll get unlocked even more so in Adelaide. But I mean, I just want to run through the players who have signed on for NBL 24 here, the Kiwi players, because it's a hefty list. You got at the Breakers, Tom Abercrombie, Finn Delaney, Isaiah Liafa, Dan Fortu, and then Alex McNaught as a DP. Perth Wildcats have got Corey and Ty Webster. They got Hiram Harris. They got Jack Andrew and Dante Rosso-Nance, those two as DPs as well. Melbourne United have Shaylee and Flynn Cameron. They've also got Rob Lowe as an injury replacement for the start of the season, at least for the first month or so. See how long he sticks around there. Cairns Taipans have added Sam Meninga to go alongside Sam Wardenberg. Southeast Melbourne Phoenix have Ruben Tarangi and Anzac Rosetta was a development player. Tyrell Harrison still at the Brisbane Bullets. Walter Brown still a DP for Tasmania Jack Jumpers. Sam Timmins is signed with Sydney Kings. Tohi Smith-Milner now with Adelaide. That is 21 players contracted for NBL 2-4. There were 20 players who took the court in NBL 21, so that's the 2020-21 season. Last year, NBL 2-3, we had 20 players took the court. Fewer minutes last year than we did in the other year where we had 20, but those are the records. We've got 21 players contracted. If they all take the floor at some point, which we would hope they would, then that will be a new record. Can we raise that even further? Why not? Tom Vodanovic is a potential to return at some point. We know the Breakers have been working out a couple guys. Dom Kelman Poto, Max Darling, Carlin Davison. They've been spotted at Breakers training. Potentially a matter of just filling in while their Tall Blacks guys are away at the World Cup, probably more than anything. And their roster is full, I will add. But they do still have development player contract. I think 2 development player contracts available to them, so that's a possibility. Don't see Jordan Atai anywhere on that list, and he's currently starting games at the World Cup. There's always more DP talent out there where that came from. So, we're set for record tallies in NBL 2-4. I'm hoping that we're not done yet either.
I feel like I'm predicting the future at the moment. And shout out, so the spin theme, Ravindra and McConchie, they're both spinners, right? That was my whole bit, but I forgot to do it. So shout out to them. I'm also going to throw up 5 names that I think are going to be part of the Aotearoa Kiwis international program at the end of this season. And many of them are going to be playing finals footy. Jordan Ricky is one of them. I think Jordan Ricky, in the form he's in right now, playing for a good Broncos team, he might have a starting edge forward position. And because Isaiah Papali'i's playing for the Tigers, they're at the bottom of the ladder. Kenny Bromwich isn't doing a whole lot for the Dolphins. Britton Nakora is a starting edge forward for me. And Jordan Ricky is competing with Marata Niokore, but I think Marata Niokore is better suited to the bench with his utility value. So I can see Jordan Ricky getting into that Kiwis squad. He was in the squad last year with Griffin Neem, but they didn't play. Griffin Neem's also on this list. Not his best season, not as good as last season, but he's still there or thereabouts playing for the Cowboys. They are chasing finals footy, I still believe. So keep an eye on him. Matthew Tomoko, gun centre for the Raiders. He's going to be a starting centre for the Aotearoa Kiwis, I reckon. That's been on the cards all season long. Leo Thompson's part of this undefeated streak for the Knights. He's playing big minutes in the middle for one of the hottest teams in the NRL right now. I can see him getting into the Kiwi squad, especially as like Waidea Hargraves is out suspended at the moment. There's some injuries. Jesse Bromwich is out injured. Watch out for that. Leo Thompson and, of course, William Warbrick, try-scoring extraordinaire for the Melbourne Storm. I don't know if he's better than Jermaine Isako, Dylan Waitini-Zalesniak, Ronaldo Molitalo, or Jordan Rapana, but he's going to be in the squad somewhere. And all of those 5 players, Matthew Tomoko is the only one from Auckland. He's an Otahuhu Jr., Jordan Ricky is from Christchurch, Leo Thompson's from Napier, William Warbrick is from Kawerau, and Griffin Neem is from Greymouth. So they're the next up Aotearoa Kiwis. No eligibility dramas either. Like, they're straight up just Aotearoa Kiwis, and one of them is from Auckland. Ponder that one. Another one for you.
Yeah, I might merge my last 2 here and save some time, but talking about your Nostradamus efforts there, I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, sort of highlighting who I thought were the top, specifically attacking creative female footballers coming through, because that's the issue that the Wellington Phoenix blokes have that I mentioned. It's the issue that the All Whites have had. It's the issue that the Wellington Phoenix women have had. And it's the issue that the football ferns have had, is creativity and goal scoring. So I highlighted 6 players who I thought can help do that, like 6 emerging players. One of them was Ruby Nathan. Well, Ruby Nathan's just signed with Canberra United for the upcoming A-League season. And, I mean, there's a lot of elements to that, and I wrote about a bit of it in the Substack newsletter yesterday. But one of the things that I think is most interesting is just looking beyond the attacking player thing in particular, just looking at the under-17s World Cup squad from last year, to highlight just how many more opportunities are available to female footballers in this country now, where it used to be like maybe half the football ferns were still playing domestically or a semi-pro or whatever. And, these days we've got a full squad of professionals where there are like solid, experienced professional international players not being picked for World Cup squads, as we just had recently. Like, that's the depth we've got now. The under-17 World Cup squad from last year, the under-17s, not even the under-20s, but the under-17s, 6 of those players have already signed professional contracts since that World Cup. Mania Elliott's just signed on as a scholarship player with the Wellington Phoenix, as has Olivia Ingham. Both of them are joining the Knicks on initial 2-year scholarship deals with a 3rd year as a full contract. Ruby Nathan to Canberra United, mentioned that one. Millie Clegg, her teammate, who was Clegg and Nathan both played together for Auckland United, but they're also both the only 2 players who went to both the under-17 and under-20 World Cup last year for New Zealand. Millie Clegg, top scorer for the Wellington Phoenix last year, and has since signed with Western Sydney Wanderers. So she's already had 2 professional contracts. She's ahead of everyone else. And then you've also got Chiara Berselli at Sampdoria in Italy, and Olivia Page now at Sheffield United in England. Another point to this Ruby Nathan thing is that here is yet another top Kiwi prospect of recent times avoiding the USA college route instead, like choosing to go to the A-League instead. And then to swing this back around to tie things together as well, I was talking about record numbers of Kiwis in the NBL. Well, we might be due something similar in the A-League women's as well, because Nathan was the 8th New Zealander to sign for an Australian club for next season. Last year we had 9, which was a record. I think before we'd had 2 years where there were 7 Kiwis, and this is excluding the Wellington Phoenix. This is just Kiwis at the Aussie clubs. We had 7 a couple times. We had 9 last year. We were up to 8, but now we're back down to 7 because Claudia Bunge, who was under contract at Melbourne Victory, and they threw a little curveball. I was expecting her to leave, go to Europe, but then all of a sudden she's under contract for another year. Well, now she's not, because they've released her from that contract to go sign with HB Køge in Denmark, where she will be a teammate of Daisy Cleverly, and they will be embarking on Champions League qualifiers within, I think, in 2 weeks. So, yeah, there you go. This takes us to 7 Kiwis for the next A-League season at Aussie clubs, but we still have a bunch of players undecided. You don't know what's going on with Katie Bowen is a free agent. Malia Steinmetz is a free agent. Hannah Wilkinson's a free agent. Bessie Hassett could come back. We'll see. Olivia Chance is now a free agent. Emma Ralston. Like there's a few more players who could fill that out. There's been women who have left, like Satchel and Bunge, and Indy Riley is another one all signing in Europe. Hassett as well, to be honest, although this time of the season she might come back. Still replenishing the stocks despite all that. There's just, too much talent to contain.
Musical Jam, we've got a new song from Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist, new project as well that I want to listen to, but the new video is Sentry featuring Mike. Also got Crystal Chen. I love her little mellow little songs. She's got a new song, Not Another Love Song, which is a cool love song. And of course, Reiki Ruawai. He's got a groovy tune, Papatua Nuku, as well. Your musical jam selections for this week.
Well, I will have to do some repetition here because last week I talked about how Hemingway and Clementine Valentine both had albums coming out, and now those albums are out, and I've listened to those albums and I like them a lot. So I'm gonna re-up those, I'm gonna throw it out there now that I can actually back up my words with experience and say, yeah, I did listen to them and they're good. Both Kiwi artists there, and then also I do have to second the old Earl and the Alchemist, which just seems like a perfect combination. Like, and I haven't listened to the album yet, but I did listen to the lead track that you're talking about, and it's exactly what you want from that combination. So there you go.
Shut up, got you listening to the ALC, the Big Al.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Al the Chemist. And of course, Earl Sweatshirt legend. So that's our musical selections for this week. Big up yourself. Stay tuned. We'll do our niche cast on Thursday, and there's plenty of yarns to be enjoyed on our website, theniche-case.com. Check in, tap in, tune in, and we'll be back for more podcasts on Thursday. Big up. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Cheer.